I'm going to go ahead and start recording. Steve, why don't I'm going to go ahead and spotlight you so that you can
scare everyone. Well, let's
It's
go
going to the other picture there.
Welcome to the April Guild General Meeting. I just want to let everybody know that we've been having good conversations with our landlord at the shop, and we expect by the end of the week that we'll have a basic agreement on how we're going to set up the extension. Our current lease runs through the end of June, and so we're trying to make sure we're ready to go for the next 3 to 5 years. About the only other business that we have has to do with Volunteer of the Month. And this is sort of a two-part thing. The first is that Ed Swaycon moved at the board meeting that we permanently name the award henceforth as the Gig Lewis Volunteer of the Month Award. And basically, you probably all know that Gig passed away very recently. And we gave him the Lifetime Achievement Award because he was so instrumental in getting the Guild where it is in terms of organization and having the shop and the 9 yards. But along the way, he was always working on us to make sure we understood the value of volunteering in an organization like this. And he was so good at it that after we sent out the announcement about his passing, I was able to collect probably 20 or 30 messages responding to that announcement about how Gig had, sidled up to folks, introduced himself, told them all about the Guild and how they can contribute, and really been instrumental in their growing interest in the shop and taking part in volunteering. So I think it only makes sense, and that was approved. Second part is that we nominated Jeff Hilber as the Volunteer of the Month for April. And I didn't see that Jeff was here, but the reason for it is that Jeff has almost taken it on as a personal crusade to operate, reorganize, and deliver the initial introduction to the Guild and safety. And he's been doing those classes all year. I think even when the shop was shut down. And it was great when somebody just said, okay, I'm taking that on. It's so important to get people to understand the Guild and particularly understand how to get use of the shop and build towards certification of that. So he's really been instrumental in that regard. So if Jeff was here, I'll give him a big hand. That's really it. I want people to know that the shop is up and running. Open Shop is up and running. Some of the machine skills classes have begun. And I think that we're just on the verge of getting some other woodworking classes going. So keep an eye on the calendar for those. And with that, Joe, you said you didn't want to be the MC, but why don't you go ahead and do a little intro for Lynn?
Oh, sure. And I've been muting people in the background because I hear we're getting some kind of background noises. So I've been, let's see, I need to get you off the screen here. Lynn has done, as many of you may know, that I'm a part of the project build team, and Lynn has done a presentation for us there that I was impressed with, and I thought that it would be a good thing for her to come and share her knowledge about especially the hardwoods of the Northwest, or the woods of the Northwest, and the things that Sustainable Northwest Woods does. And I think it's a real valuable resource for us. And I think all of us are always looking for ways that we can be, we obviously work with a product that's renewable, but we're looking for ways to use our products sustainably. And right in the title of the company is sustainable. And so I thought I really liked this idea When I was back in Columbus, we had there was a company that did something very similar, but I really like the idea of sustainability. And if you go to Sustainable Northwest Woods, you'll see they have it's a fantastic lumberyard, and I really enjoyed it. And so I asked Lynn to do this, and she agreed. I think you'll find her very well organized and ready to go. And I think looks like you're muted, Lynn. So I'm going to ask you to unmute. And if you could just kind of tell us a little bit about your background, and then go on with your presentation. I see. I'm just looking at your background. I love to do this when we have Zooms, is looking at what people have in their background. And it looks like you've got a bunch of pictures of wood and pieces of wood. So.
Yeah, I'm a little bit of a wood geek for sure. And I love to collect sticks and weird pieces of fall off and things like that. I have little pieces of bark on all the windowsills. And yeah, I'm just kind of fascinated by all the things organic about wood, and I so appreciate you having me back, and that you enjoyed the presentation at Project Build. And I just really admire the Guild and all the things that you guys do. And it's always a treat to get to see the individual members come down to our shop. If you haven't been to Sustainable Northwest Wood before, I'd encourage you to come down, and I'll give you a shop tour, show you a lot of the different things that we'll talk about tonight. And then you can kind of dive deep and come pick out some wood for your projects. And I'm really grateful for the opportunity to speak to your full group here tonight. And hopefully, if you've seen this before, it won't be too boring, and you can feel free to plug in some questions in the chat, and then we can have a little open-ended question and answer session at the end if you would like.
That's perfect.
Yeah. And so if you listen to me talk for very long, you'll realize that I'm not from Southeast Portland, even though I live and work here. I grew up in Kentucky, and my family owned some small wooded areas, and we used to, selectively harvest some logs and send those to the mill. One of my first apartments was within earshot of a little sawmill in Eastern Kentucky. And so I've kind of grown up with this in my DNA. My dad's a woodworker and a carpenter. And so the smell of sawdust really speaks to my memories. And I love working here because of that. There's all those great aromas of wood around the shop, and I mix that up with a little K&F coffee in the back of our shop. And it's a little sensory delight. So what I'm going to do, let me see here. I'm going to share my screen, and I'll kind of just jump into our presentation, tell you a little bit more about us.
Yeah, that sounds great.
And
we've set it up so you can, I hope. Have we?
Yes.
Yes.
Surely have.
Yep. Okay, cool. Great.
And
She's good. She can do it.
Yeah. Okay.
you have such faith in me.
Yeah. All right.
All right. Now, can you see my full screen okay?
We see that, and we see the next slide. You've
got the present. You swap displays, right?
Yeah.
Slideshow. Come on, do it.
Well, it should work, huh?
I always have to do this first and then come back to it.
Okay.
I don't know why it doesn't let me do it when I'm on Zoom.
You can also try hitting F5 and see if that doesn't pull it up. You're using a PC, I see, so.
Yeah. So annoying. Did this the last presentation I had too, and it was really frustrating. It took me a couple of minutes to figure it out.
Well, I find about technology is that it's most likely to fail when you need it.
Yeah, right.
So, all right.
Yeah, we're still not. Yeah, it's showing me.
There's usually a tiny little icon, like when you're in.
Yeah, down at the bottom of the screen.
bottom
When I'm
left.
clicking it, it's not letting me in there. So, let's see. Let's try this.
Lynn, are you trying to share your screen?
Yeah, sharing my screen, but also I'm trying to enlarge the presentation so it's in slide
On that-
view.
On that pull down
You
where
have
it
to go to
said
presentation view in
slideshow.
PowerPoint and then share that whole screen.
And then swap displays, because right now you have it in two display modes. So one is your slides and one is the other one. So you just need to swap the two displays. So there's usually a little icon that says like swap down in the, right next to those. There's like 3 little icons down the bottom. And one of those has a menu that says swap displays.
Right now, you're not sharing your screen with us.
Oh, goodness. All right, hold on. Let's-
Mhm.
Share your screen and we can help you.
Yeah,
I think where you had it where it said slideshow, you click on resume slideshow and it should pop it right up.
She was in she was sharing presentation the presenter side, so we just
Yeah.
need to get her to swap.
Yeah, gosh, you guys,
Yeah.
I'm so sorry. Hold on.
that's okay. You know,
We've all done it. How do you think we're doing that? How do you think we're doing this information?
I know. All
Yeah, I
right,
just did it in a
let's try to
presentation in
share
front of 100 people
screen
yesterday, so.
again.
okay, bingo.
Are we there?
We're getting
Alright.
close. We're looking
Close
at
enough?
the.
Yeah, it's
we're-
just like,
we're
I
looking at
don't
the
know.
PowerPoint.
You're gonna do it?
Okay,
Now try the F5.
yeah.
Actually, it's one of those weird little icons there that's under there. See those little, I think it's the fourth one over that shows the 2 different displays. You see that? Yeah, there's the one magnifying glass, and the one next to it.
No?
Go back to your resume slideshow.
Mhm.
Yeah, go back to resume slideshow.
Yep, you're stop sharing your,
All right, I don't know why it's doing that. All right.
bingo, there always, okay. Now you're
So
actually.
now you have that. All right,
Yeah, now we go to your PowerPoint.
hold on. Close the whole thing out.
That's okay. Because we're actually just seeing your desktop now, so,
Okay, that's good. That'll
yeah,
just-
it's
yeah.
good, yeah.
Mhm.
We get to see how you organize your life.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, right.
boy,
It's
yeah.
it's all the things.
Mhm.
And of course, this will take a moment to load now
Yeah,
that I
yeah,
closed it out.
Yeah, it's okay.
Well, you guys are awesome. Thanks for your patience. I really appreciate
Yeah,
that. That
well.
makes me feel much better that you're
Mhm.
just a patient and kind
Well,
group and
For
nobody's gonna
anybody
throw
who's ever
tomatoes at
done
me
a
just yet.
presentation, yeah, anybody who's done a presentation knows how this goes.
All
Bingo,
right.
Yeah.
So there is slideshow.
go for that, yeah.
I don't know why it won't give me the full screen though. When I do that, it's doing this.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah, so that's the presentation view for the other screen. So you do see there's the one that looks like a magnifying glass. Can you move your mouse over
Yeah,
there? So
right
the one
there.
next to it. Nope, go to the one next to it. The one to the right.
to the right
One more.
is black or unblack
Yeah. What's the next
slideshow.
one? Okay, now go to the
Toggle
dot
subtitles.
one then.
Yeah,
See the dot one. Click on that one,
Okay.
and then there should be a
Hide presenter view.
Yeah, there we go. Hide presenter view.
Okay.
yep, there you go.
Quicker than me.
Oh my gosh, you guys are amazing.
There we
You're
go,
on my
you're
tech
set.
team. You're hired.
Yeah,
Yay!
okay.
Okay. All right. So from the ground up, sustainable Northwest wood is really about all local wood species, and our purpose is for the greater good. And I'll talk a little bit more about what we mean by that. But essentially, we want to help people build with purpose. And one of the things that I noted is when I first started working here 3 years ago, very shortly after was one of the last times I saw you all in person.
Mhm.
And it was a gathering of the guild here at our shop. And we had Dave Barman with Epilogue spoke, and you guys had a great meeting here, and it was just a blast. And it was a really great way for me to kick off my career here for sure, because I was like, yeah, we can throw a party. That was really fun. And one of your mottos that really kind of struck me was you were promoting the craft of woodworking for the woodworkers of today and tomorrow. And we kind of take that view of making sure that that we're supporting ecological stewardship so that you'll have wood for those woodworkers of today and tomorrow. And I think that there's a real nice synchronistic relationship between what we do and what you do. And hopefully we can find some really creative and cool ways to do that together. And that is part of our overall goal, is to, you know, to make a positive impact. And our work is only fulfilled by, you know, customers like you coming into our shop and the thing we can actually do together to make a positive impact. Because your purchases and how you decide to spend your money and where you spend your money can really have an impact one way or another on our community and on our forests and on, you know, other places that you touch throughout our region. And I just take a moment to introduce my team. We're just a very small team here in Southeast Portland. If you haven't been to our shop, we're at the corner of 14th and Clinton. And we're all a bunch of wood geeks, wood enthusiasts, wood lovers. There's some woodworkers on our team, and I'm definitely not, even though I grew up with one, I don't have very many skills. But I have a deep appreciation for craftsmanship and pretty much anything made out of wood, and just admire the natural beauty of things, and then also just the different places that it comes from, and the types of trees that grow out here in the Northwest especially are really different than what I grew up with in Kentucky for sure. And so that's been a real interesting learning curve for me, to learn different species and different attributes and the different kinds of construction methods that can be used to utilize all that. We come from a nonprofit organization, actually started our company, and Sustainable Northwest is the nonprofit that's been around for 25 years, doing great work in the community and in the region when it comes to forest practices and water conservation and restoration work throughout the region. It's a really great organization, and our president, Ryan Temple, started there and really saw a need with especially in some of the restoration work, to develop a wood place that these mills could sell their products. And so our profits go partially in support of Sustainable Northwest to support and continue their good work in our region. So when you buy lumber here, part of the money that we make goes to supporting those small mills in the area and lots of fabricators around the region, and then also to support this great nonprofit that's our parent company. So it really creates a win-win situation for everybody. Sustainability is at our core. It's really in our DNA, and it's everything we do has a sustainability story. And I'll talk about some of the different ways that we define that, and different things that we're doing to make the most out of the precious resource that is timber here in Oregon and Washington, and a little bit out of Northern California. But we primarily focus our efforts here in Oregon to support some of the rural sawmills and fabricators right here, you know, within a couple hours drive of our shop. And our main goal is to bolster our local economies, to ensure the long-term health of our forests that we live and love to play in, and to receive, you know, those great products that come out of the forest, and then also to connect people to those places where wood comes from, and to have people have, you know, just a sense of story and a sense of belonging and a sense of connection. one of my favorite things that we do is partnering with some of these sawmills around the area. You know, with my background of growing up in a tiny little town in Eastern Kentucky, there are several sawmills in the area that are in tiny little towns. And this guy here in the middle is Kendall Derby. He's a juniper sawyer down in Fossil, Oregon. If you've never been there, it's one of the most beautiful places on earth. And Kendall is the salt of the earth and one of the pioneers of harvesting and manufacturing with juniper and running his sawmill using that particular lumber. And we have worked with him and about a dozen different sawmills over in Eastern Oregon to develop different products that we can use out of that lumber that's coming out of restoration work. And so it's kind of a neat thing that we do with connecting, you know, the sawmills to the fabricators, and then right on down the line to bring these products that are all just made here, grown here, and produced right here in our area. Our stories tell different ideas and carry thoughts of, you know, all the different places and local people. We specialize in Forest Stewardship Council certified lumber, so FSC lumber. FSC is a third-party certification that helps consumers to know that this particular product comes from well-managed forests. And it helps to provide a balance in our ecosystems. And does FSC primarily focuses on selective harvesting and longer crop rotations so that the trees are there longer to capture carbon, and also restricts the use of herbicides to kill everything around the trees, and then wider stream buffers where logging is allowed. So it's a great peace of mind certification and assurance that that the lumber is from well-managed forests. And juniper is one of our flagship products here, and it is coming from restoration work in Eastern Oregon. If you're familiar with that area at all, juniper, you'll see it all over the hillsides. It's kind of taking over a lot of the grassland areas in Eastern Oregon. And because it's such a thirsty tree, and water is pretty precious in that part of the state, the removal of juniper is really helping out to balance the ecosystems. Juniper became invasive, as they're called. It's just encroaching out of its normal territory, mainly because of fire suppression is not allowing those small juniper seedlings to be killed out by fire. And so it's just kind of running rampant over there. And so we do cool things like take that restoration lumber and then turn it into decking and furniture lumber and flooring and exterior siding and all kinds of different products. And we're trying to be really innovative with how we use it and to utilize as much of it as we can. It's a great resource, and it's providing jobs in areas that there aren't very many economic opportunities. And while it's also providing habitat restoration and improving the water situation over there too. So it's kind of a cool program that we're doing, and a great beneficial wood that's incredibly rot resistant. It'll outlast cedar and redwood. And then it's just supporting our local economy. So it's a pretty neat story, and I love to tell it. Another thing that we do in that realm of utilizing resources is through salvage lumber. There's a little mountain pine beetle that is decimating our pine trees out here in this area. It started in Colorado, and it's kind of progressively moving this way. And the little beetle leaves behind this really cool blue stain that can be used in wall paneling and flooring and butcher block countertops and all kinds of cool uses for that lumber. And it's just a striking and incredible artistic pattern that comes through because of that little bug that kills the trees. So that's a neat little salvage story. And a lot of what we offer comes from those kind of conservation projects and removal of diseased and dead trees. And then we also offer products that are coming from other types of salvage, like urban salvage. Sometimes we work with urban sawyers that have to take trees out because they've become too big for the space, or they've become diseased or need to be taken out, or like we had this winter, all of the snowstorms did a horrific damage all up and down the I-5 corridor, and there's a lot of trees that they're being salvaged from those storms, and we're trying to utilize and turn into lumber as much of that as we can as well. And some of our lumber comes from chip yards and also from other forest activity where they're discarding the madrone trees when they're looking for Doug fir and harvesting those trees. And so we work with a couple of mills that will salvage trees like that too. We don't do any of the milling or cutting or processing or kiln drying or anything like that here, but we have a whole network of people that do. And so quite often we'll get calls for people that have an oak tree in their yard that they're looking for, you know, a special place for it so it doesn't turn into firewood. And we can usually connect people with urban sawyers in the area to help them take care of things like that. So just a little bit about FSC. If you're not familiar with the Forest Stewardship Council, they're doing really great work globally, and then right here in the Pacific Northwest with certifying our forests, certifying the mills that cut the lumber, the fabricators that process it, and then the stores that sell it. And so there's a whole chain of custody that just goes back to that assurance that the lumber itself is coming from sustainably managed forests, and it gives the end consumer that that stamp of assurance, and it's definitely something that we really focus hard on, and know that the more FSC lumber that is purchased, the more demand that creates for sustainable lumber as a whole. So anytime you get a chance to do some framing lumber or plywood or things like that, and can buy it from FSC forests, it helps everything, you know, across our region with carbon storage. It helps protect water and wildlife. And there's a lot of restoration work that's happening in FSC forests that helps to reduce wildfire. They will take some of those thin trees and turn it into usable lumber as well. And then globally, FSC is helping to combat deforestation by protecting tropical forests as well. So, you know, here in the US as well as abroad. So it's a pretty cool outfit.
Hey, Lynn, would you like to take questions as we go? Because I'm doing questions on a chat on the side.
Well, you know, I am totally happy to take questions as we go. And this might be a good time, you know, just to touch on that if there is one now, for sure. Ask
Well, we've
away.
got a question. The photos of that juniper.
Mhm.
It looks like there's both sapwood and the heartwood's darker and the sapwood's lighter. Is there a difference in rot resistance between the two, or is it just all the same?
That's a great question. And it really is, the heartwood is more rot resistant. So when you, especially if you use this as a landscaping material, you can use it for retaining walls or for garden boxes. And when you're here at our yard shopping, you're going to want to look for pieces that have more of that heartwood. The sapwood will tend to deteriorate a little more quickly, but they're both pretty dang rot resistant, but you will definitely get a little more rot resistance out of the heartwood than the sapwood.
And I have a second question. And before moving to Oregon, I lived in Ohio, so I know Kentucky well. Out there, and we had two scourges coming: the emerald ash borer, which was killing all the ash, and the gypsy moth, which was killing oak. And I when I came out here and saw that this pine beetle was destroying the pines out here, by culling the dead trees, are you slowing the progress of the beetle, or is the beetle going to be like it? I mean, in Ohio, they've lost the battle to the emerald ash borer. They're going to lose every ash tree in Ohio.
Yeah, it's really sad.
So,
You know, that's a really good question. I'm honestly not sure if the removal of these trees is going to help, because what happens is when the tree is dead and standing, the beetles will do their magic and then they will move on to another live tree, is my
Sure.
understanding.
Mhm.
So, yeah, it is, and because of how rapidly it has spread from the Rocky area, from, the Rocky Mountains, to here, and just the millions of acres that have been decimated over the last decade, I would say it's going to be a continuing problem. There's a lot of blue pine on the market right now. It's priced, super reasonably compared to other woods because there is an abundance of it. And yeah, there doesn't seem to be any end in sight, unfortunately. And
Right.
I mean, the cool thing is at least it does produce some really cool lumber, but
Yeah.
there's a lot of it that is just absolute waste. The beetles get into the wood, and the buggy blue pine is one of the other nicknames that it has. And there's some pretty intense damage to the wood itself on the inside of the log. And so quite a bit of it is just waste. So yeah, it's an ongoing problem, and it's kind of a double-edged sword in that the beetles sometimes will infest right after a wildfire, but they also create a situation where fires are much more prevalent because the trees are dead. So it's happening in both situations with, and it'll be interesting to see if there's an increase in the population after this last series of really intense wildfires that we had this last fall.
Actually, one of my members, Carol, has just replied that removing the dead trees doesn't slow the beetles. Unfortunately, to do that, live forests need to be managed to make them healthier and more able to withstand the beetles, because they go for the trees that are stressed. So thank you, Carol.
Yeah. Thank you for that. Yeah, and as the climate is warming, the trees are becoming more stressed. It's harder for them to thrive in those situations. And especially in forests like this one, particularly, it's pretty overcrowded, hasn't been thinned in a while. And so when you can create a healthy environment for the trees, it'll make them more resistant, for sure.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
it's an ongoing problem.
Okay, thank you. No other questions are showed up yet.
All right. Well,
I'll keep interrupting you though. If I get more.
Please
Okay.
do. Please do.
All right.
That'd be great.
Thank you.
Yeah. So, to carry on, I mean, what we're doing here is we are stewarding a community that's connected by what we call good wood, and good wood is coming from that variety of resources that we talked about. And it is, it's sustaining a variety of people, from the lumberjacks that cut the trees to the sawmill owners. Construction is booming right now, and contractors are thriving in this little community that we've built, but there's also the truck drivers and the fabricators and craftspeople all over the region, and just a wide variety of people that benefit from these connections. And we thrive ourselves, on it, and love to connect people in different ways that might be, either looking for a contract or referral, or looking for someone to build a piece of furniture for them. And we refer to the guild quite often for that, and send people your way when they're looking for somebody to build something for them. And it's just a neat little community that we have of wood geeks and wood lovers, and just aficionados that really appreciate the mindfulness that our lumber is, being harvested and brought here to us. And it just makes for a really neat partnership with a lot of different individuals, designers and architects, and other retail partners as well. So we sell some of our lumber to Dunn Lumber up in Seattle, carries our Juniper products. Contract Furnishing Mark carries our butcher block countertops, and some of the different places along the way. So it's a really neat network of people that care. And I love that part of my job, getting to connect with different people coming from different backgrounds and stories. And what we really love to do is, to provide wood that is worthy of your values, and whatever your values are. If you're shopping local, if you want to shop for responsibly sourced materials, environmentally friendly, if your idea is simply just creative expression, we have different products to kind of fit any of those values. And so, you know, moving from FSC certified framing lumber, plywood, pressure treated and fire treated lumber, exterior products like siding and decking and fencing, garden box material, and interior products like butcher block, flooring, paneling trim, and then beautiful live edge slabs. And then our assortment of hardwood lumbers, which I'll really go into a little bit more detail about. But there's if you are building something, we have a wood product that you can source sustainably and feel good about what you're buying and how you're impacting the community directly.
I have another question here, and this is are these the woods like juniper and blue pine milled to a thickness that's suitable for bowl or hollow form turning? So we have some turners in our guild that are.
Oh yeah, you guys have turners, and that's probably the one area that we don't do very well. The thickest material that we get is typically a 10/4, and with juniper and blue pine, it's usually 8/4 or 2-inch thick material. Sometimes we'll get live edge slabs that are a little bit thicker, but hardly ever any, you know, 3 or 4-inch blocks of wood. But I bet a blue pine bowl or a juniper bowl would be absolutely amazing. And I don't know if you noticed, I'm wearing juniper earrings today.
No,
So
I did not
you
notice
can do
that.
all kinds of fun things, you know, with the wood for sure. And we do stock it in a kiln dried 8/4. That's especially juniper is designed for furniture, and you know, we have a landscaping grade and then we have a furniture grade in that material too.
Okay. Do your COVID protocols allow for spontaneous drop-ins, or do you have to make an appointment?
You know, we love it if you make an appointment, but it's not necessary now. The further we get down this path to where we're opening up, we still have our front door closed to walk-in traffic, but all you have to do is just call us when you get here and we'll guide you in. Showroom, we're allowing 4 people in here at once, but the juniper yard and the open air warehouse are, you know, we can have more people in those more open air spaces. And it's usually really easy to just get you in right away. So an appointment's not necessary, but you can always call us and plan ahead, especially if there's something particular that you're looking for. We can organize the units of lumber. Sometimes there'll be plenty lumber in the rack, but if there's something specific like certain thickness or widths, or like if you need 200 board feet of 4/4 colored madrone, we can have a unit set down for you, and that way you can sort through it and find the pieces that'll be perfect for your project.
Thank you.
Yeah, so that's another really good question too. Any other ones before we jump into?
Nope, that's the last one that's showing up on the chat. So
yeah,
I'll keep interrupting when as I can. Okay.
that's great, Joe. Thank you so much. You're awesome. You're a great MC. So I would talk a little bit about our unique woods here to the northwest. We stock a dozen different wood species, and they're all coming from Oregon, primarily a little bit in Southwest Washington. Our white fir comes from the Collins Company down in Northern California. Their headquarters is actually in Wilsonville. So, and they're milled to standard dimensions, usually 4/4, 5/4, 6/4, and 8/4 dimensions. Some exceptions to those rules, but we can also do custom cuts quite often too, especially when it comes to juniper, where we have a dozen mills that we work with in that particular wood species. There's a lot of flexibility in what we can have the mills cut for us. And then, you know, just a wide variety of beautiful woods. And so it creates all kinds of design possibilities and different things that you can create. And what I thought would be a neat way to organize this, since there's not really a great way to organize this, was just to start with the softer woods. I'm not going to cover very much about pine and cedar and the white fir. They're a little bit out of the furniture making realm, with the exception of sugar pine and ponderosa pine. We stock that in like a 1x12 that we've got a couple neat record album turntable storage companies that make little units out of that sugar pine, but primarily I'll focus on these other 9 species here at the top. And I'm going to start with Doug fir. It's the softest of the woods that we offer, and I'll work my way up to the hardest species as we go along. Doug fir being our state tree, and it is the most abundant of all of the tree species that we have here in our area. And it's an icon of the Pacific Northwest. You'll see up here that it grows primarily in the West Coast. This is like everybody on the East Coast that wants Doug fir. This is where it's coming from. And ours is certified by FSC to ensure that it's coming from sustainably managed forests. And in those FSC forests, you're really going to find a diversity of species. You'll find a mix of big leaf maple and usually western red cedar. There's usually some incense cedar, and just a mix of things that can be found in the forest. There'll be some madrone occasionally, and then just a whole understory of other flora and fauna that live in the forest. And it just makes for a great place for recreating and wildlife habitat as well. And you can, if you ever have the chance to visit a forest that's managed like this versus a monocrop, where they clear cut and they spray and there's not another living thing around except a forest of really tight packed Doug fir, you can feel even the energy and the difference in how those forests act and behave, and just what can actually even live there. So it's a neat way to do foresting, and the crop rotations are longer, so the trees grow much bigger, and they'll do selective thinning to make room for those bigger trees. And the end, result is to protect our old growth and to make sure that some of these jewels are available for our future generations. And primarily Doug fir, we stock it for flooring material and trim for around window and door casings. We can have it custom milled if you've got something special that you're trying to match. The flooring that we stock is the historic 3 1/4 inch VG or mixed grain. And then we also have it available in 8 1/4 for making furniture, and just some really beautiful, clean, clear, beautiful pieces of lumber to make furniture out of. And I thought this piece in the middle was particularly interesting. That's actually out of a reclaimed piece of Doug fir that an artist at the Nature Conservancy built that little table. I thought that was just a really cool use of that wood. So its Janka rating on the hardness scale is at 660. And so it makes for a pretty soft lumber, but there's all kinds of cool things that you can do with it. And then we'll talk a little bit about Campground Blue Pine. And Joe, I appreciate you sending me a photo of your awesome little bench there
Thank you.
to share with the group. And thanks for letting me use that in my presentation. And thanks for just coming down here and shopping, and finding what you need here, and just, creating that relationships for us. It makes my life a lot more interesting for sure. And there's, you can see that pine trees grow all over this region. Blue pine comes from either ponderosa pine or sugar pine. The beetle doesn't seem to be too discerning about which pine trees. They're pretty much attacking all of them. And what it leaves behind is a fungus, which is an inert fungus, but that's what causes the blue staining in the sapwood. And you will see bug trail and, pockets where these little guys have laid their eggs and hatched, and all kinds of different patterns in the wood created by that blue fungus that makes just a very neat artistic expression through Mother Nature. These other 2 pieces were made by the guys at our shop. Jake made this little piece for his dad for Christmas, who's from Idaho originally, and it's a piece of butcher block that he carved into the state of Idaho. And just, you can do all kinds of things with this material, from furniture to flooring, and interior wall paneling is a really popular thing that we do with this too. And live edge slabs, we've got some beautiful pieces in the shop right now with that natural edge to it as well.
I have a question for you, Lynn, and that is, I think you said earlier you did not have kilns. Did I get that right?
Yeah, that's right. We don't actually do or make any of this stuff.
Okay.
We buy it from people kind of ready to go. And so, but this in particular is super important to have kiln dried because there's a little bug that lives in the trees. That bug can also be transported into the lumber. And so that's one of the reasons for kiln drying any lumber, but also to stabilize it and get it down to a moisture content that you can work with it easily.
Sure.
So we don't have a kiln or a mill service here at all, but work with several in the area that do.
Okay.
So it's nice to have friends that do things that you can't, right?
So you have kiln dryers that you work with all the time then?
Yeah, we do. Yeah, Caster's Mill down in Malino is one, and then there's several mills around the area. And then Kendall Derby, that first guy I showed you in Juniper Country, he is the only sawmill of the dozen juniper mills that we work with that has a kiln. So most of the lumber that is cut in Eastern Oregon is sent to his shop to be kiln dried, anything that we would want for furniture grade. But the landscape grade is not kiln dried at all. We just use that green.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. And to go back to that note on juniper, I did talk a little bit about, just the explosion of the population of juniper in the last 100 years has gone from about 1 million acres of juniper in Eastern Oregon. And you can kind of see primarily that is, its natural territory. Well, because it has encroached into the grassland areas, there's about 10 million acres of juniper right now. In that area, just because of fire suppression. And it makes it very challenging for the watersheds and for wildlife. There's some species that thrive on the sage grass that grows. And when juniper takes over the grassland, no sage can grow there. And so the sage grouse is one animal that has been put on the threatened species list, and removing juniper is helping to restore that habitat where that amazing little bird lives. And it also is providing grasses for elk and deer to feed in the winter. And the removal of juniper is actually pretty instantly gratifying. Just about a month after they cut it away from the stream beds, water returns to the little creeks. And so it's really encouraging to see pretty instant return of the grasses within about a month or so. And then so, wildlife and humans alike are benefiting from the removal, and then also just from the end use of some of the really cool lumber that comes out of those trees. And so we're working with a lot of different companies. The Fish and Wildlife Service is involved in creating some contracts for loggers and sawyers to cut and process this lumber and to remove it to help restore some of the watersheds that feed directly into the John Day River and the little tributary streams that have mostly dried up. And it's really helping to improve the salmon habitat in that area too. So there's lots of cool projects around, from making picnic tables and furniture, and to little pieces of, little planters that Liz built, made these little guys out of just some scraps, and just a really unique coloring to the wood and just an amazing durability when it's used for exteriors, and then incredible beauty when you use it indoors.
I do have a question. It's 6x6 and 8x8. These are beams. And how long are they?
Typically 8 and 10 foot lengths. Juniper doesn't get really tall. Some of these trees are pretty massive, but we do make 8x8s mostly for landscaping lumber. And the 6x6 is the same thing. And they're a full dimension 6x6 or 8x8. All of these are full dimension to start out with. And most people will use them for retaining walls or for garden boxes, and sometimes benches and things like that. So yeah, a wide variety of uses, and typically 8 and 10 foot lengths. And we can special order 12 foot lengths if you are needing something a little bit longer, but that pretty much maxes it out for what you can get as usable lumber out of these trees.
And what's, we have, I have two questions about price. One is, do you have a price list on your webpage? And the second question is kind of more specific, is what's the approximate price per board foot of juniper?
Oh, yeah, really good questions. In a roundabout way, about $2 a board foot. And there is a price list on our website. But it's a retail price list, and I will offer up to you guys that we give the guild special pricing. So if you email us, and there'll be at the very last slide, there's an info@snwwood.com. We can email you our contractor price list, which will give you that guild discount.
Cool. Okay. And I just put the link to your homepage up on the.
Perfect. Yeah. And to give you an idea of the retail price, there's a little button right there in the middle of the homepage that says click here for Juniper price list, and that'll get you.
And the flooring or decking, how thick is that, and how long is it?
Yeah, so the decking is made out of a 2x6, and it so by the time it's surfaced into decking material, it's a nominal dimension of 1.5 inches thick and 5.5 inches wide. And we primarily stock it in 8 foot lengths. We do have a few 10-footers on hand right now. That's a little unusual, but 8s and 10s, mostly to the 8s.
Okay, thank you.
And it is really absolutely beautiful as a decking material.
Yeah, I bet it is. Yeah.
Really pretty and incredibly rot resistant, which makes it nice.
I have a need for some 12-footers.
Yeah. If you have a little time to wait, we can talk. Usually 4 to 6 weeks for special orders.
Okay.
And that will probably add a little bit of time by the time it's kiln dried and then surfaced. So, yeah.
And then I got one more question. What type of cut makes the veining shown in the plant holders that you have here?
You know, we'll have to talk to Liz Blaylock. She is the maker of these, and she literally found these as little chunks of scraps that were stickers to go in between the pieces of wood. Let me show you another piece that she made. So she's very clever. She hardly ever pays for wood. She finds scraps and things. And I don't know if you can see, am I sharing my screen still? Can you see me? Let's see. So she finds these little scraps and nuggets of cool pieces of wood, and then turns them into all kinds of little air plant holders and things. And so you will find a wide variety of swirling wild grain pattern in every piece of juniper. Every stick of that wood looks different than the one next to it. And I tell people that every day, but until I did an actual fence project of my own, I didn't realize it's really varied from piece to piece. So you'll find all kinds of neat swirls and grain patterns. And Liz got lucky with a couple of those pieces, and then she just honed them to the beauty that exists right there. Okay,
thank you very much.
Yeah. Any other questions on juniper before?
No, I've got them all. Okay.
All right. Yeah, it's my favorite.
Whenever you switch slides, I'll pop in. Okay.
Okay.
All right, great.
Yeah.
Here's the one question that just came in. How stable is juniper? I mean, how much does it shrink or expand? I think that's what El Comandante means.
Yeah, well, with any wood, as it takes on and releases moisture, as the conditions change, it will take on humidity and release it, just like most typical lumber. And the kiln dried product is definitely more stable than others. Even when it's kiln dried though, juniper, because of that crazy grain pattern that it has, sometimes it can bend and twist and bow, even under the best of circumstances. When we're having the mills cut the larger timbers, we try to always make sure that they cut them right on the heart center, and that helps to keep the boards nice and straight. And when you're getting into dimensional lumber like this, primarily it will stay straight as long as it's stacked nice and flat. But when customers go through the units and start, moving things around, then it kind of loosens things up, and juniper gets to express its personality pretty much in any way that it wants to, until it's fastened down. But once you fasten and join and, and screw it into place and do what needs to happen, then it tends to behave pretty well.
Okay. And how does it compare with cedar for external projects or?
Yeah, it's about twice as rot resistant as the newer growth cedar we have access to right now. So a stick of juniper should last about 30 years in direct contact with the ground.
Yikes.
And in
Okay.
Eastern Oregon, it probably lasts longer, like 50 years. I mean, some of the ranchers over there will use juniper posts, and they last indefinitely in that drier climate. Here, where it's a little soggier and the west side of the Cascades, we're conservatively saying about 30 years. Whereas cedar, you're lucky if you're getting 10 to 15 years out of it anymore. The old growth cedar probably is pretty well on par. And some of the advantages and disadvantages, if however you want to look at it, just the kind of the pros and cons. Juniper's longer lasting, but it has some limitations in what kind of sizes we can do or would be recommended because of the swirling grain pattern that it has. Cedar tends to be, grown for its lumber. And so the trees will be taller and straighter and, have been notched and their limbs cut off, so the tree can grow large without, all the branches. And juniper is just this wild, squirrely little tree that has never had any pruning, so the lumber that comes out of it looks kind of similar when you look at them side by side, especially after they've weathered out and silvered from the weather. They'll look pretty similar, but overall, cedar's more uniform and a little bit softer, quite a bit softer, in fact. And so, just some differences. You can get longer lengths in cedar that are just not available in juniper. And just overall, cedar tends to be just a little bit more well behaved. Let's put it like that.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. So moving from some of those softer woods into the hardwoods, I'm going to start with the softest of the hardwoods, which is our Western big leaf maple. And definitely appropriately named. It's one of my very favorite trees in the fall with an amazing golden color that kind of pops throughout the forest. I'm fortunate enough to live next to about 20 acres of woodlands behind me with a lot of big leaf maple and Doug fir and Western red cedar right there at my back door. And it's just a lovely tree to look at and produces some of the most commercially significant of all the hardwoods that we offer here in the West Coast. And it's a really beautiful kind of creamy tones to salmon kind of tones. And occasionally we'll find some pieces that develop this really amazing figuring. There'll be some quilting or, just some watercolory looking grain patterns that pop up in big leaf maple from time to time. And nobody really knows why. And if there's somebody out there in your group that is a real wood nerd and has some theories or some, some scientific evidence of why that figuring shows up, I would love to know. But it's really utilized in making flooring and furniture and stairs and, a variety of different things. We've got some beautiful live edge slab, 10-quarter maple in the showroom right now that came from Xena Forest. We work with several mills around the area. Western Hardwoods supplies quite a bit of our maple for us. And we make butcher block countertops out of it. And chopping blocks too. We've got some gorgeous maple end grain cutting boards in stock that we just got back from some scraps of stuff that we had laying around that we had made bigger butcher blocks out of and had a lot of those staves left over. And so we had our fabricator make those into some end grain cutting boards. So we're trying to always use and reuse. And if we find that we have some extra material left over or some waste that's happening, we're trying to capture that waste stream and make something more creative and productive out of it until we can't. And so you'll see that, big leaf maple here, it grows all along the West Coast. And it's definitely our most abundant hardwood and commercially significant one that we have out here. Epilogue, who I think many of you saw speak the last time we all gathered together here. This is one of the big leaf maple trees that they saved from an urban street tree and then turned into some beautiful material for making furniture and live edge slabs. It's on the soft end of the hardwood scale at a Janka rating of 850. So it's not nearly as hard as Eastern maple, but it sure is beautiful, and lots of cool things can be made out of it. One of my favorites is this piece down here at the bottom by Black Rose Woodcraft. Sean is a really amazing maker, and he did some really cool ebonizing technique that I'm not exactly sure how the heck he did that, but I think it's a really neat play with maple. And I just love seeing how creative people can get with such a simple wood. We stock this one in 4/4, 5/4, 6/4, and 8/4. And then we have a few of those 10/4 maple slabs in stock right now.
Oh, wait, okay. Oh,
Yeah, you want, is
never
there-
mind. I got, somebody had asked what the Janko rating was for Juniper, and one of our people wrote back and said 660. So
Yeah, 660, you got it. Yeah, so that makes Juniper a really hard softwood is kind of how we refer to it. It's super dense too. And so, yeah, and not very much softer than maple. And our maple, I should mention too, is all FSC certified. So a lot of our lumber, especially in the hardwood category, is coming from salvaged opportunities. And this one is coming from well-managed forests. And this is a salvaged log material that we get in the way of Oregon walnut. We call it Willamette Valley walnut because primarily there's a lot of walnut orchards in the valley where these trees have come to maturity. And so when we're able to get our hands on it, that's typically where it's coming from. Right now, we have absolutely some of the most beautiful walnut I've ever seen come through our shop that came from the Umpqua Valley. And there's an old sawyer in that area that had harvested a huge walnut tree and turned it into a bunch of live edge slabs and then some premium 4/4 and 5/4 lumber. So we've got a really nice selection of some gorgeous Umpqua Valley walnut in our shop right now. If you are a walnut lover, that's my dad's favorite lumber, and he's made several pieces of furniture out of walnut over the years. And it's really interesting to me to see how different our Eastern walnut is from there versus our Western walnut here. And I mean, there's probably a little difference in the species, but also just in the minerals that we have in our soil really create a lot of different coloring and grain patterns in this wood. You'll see little tints of green and almond and chocolate and espresso and then this rich kind of red mahogany color underneath there too. So a real wide variety of color in our walnut here. It makes beautiful furniture and cabinetry, flooring, and wall paneling, and then butcher block countertops and all kinds of things. This little guy right here is the edge of my desk that my laptop is sitting on right now. And it's an absolutely stunning piece of furniture by Bench Dog Designs. And Operation Woodshop made this really neat walnut top with those great little butterflies. And then he used Oregon white oak for the legs in this piece.
beautiful.
So the one thing about walnut, it's not native to Oregon. The settlers brought it over here, and that's why we're seeing quite a few of these trees coming available right now, is because they only live to be about 150 years old. So a lot of these that the settlers brought over are coming to the end of their life, and you'll see them in people's trees in their yards sometimes. And so we've salvaged quite a few from urban street tree situations too. And it has a Janka rating of 1010. So it's a very hard wood, not as hard as oak, but quite a bit harder than maple, and it just has just lovely character to it. We typically stock it in all these different dimensions of 4/4, 5/4, 6/4, and 8/4. And then out of that beautiful tree, we had 9 huge live edge slabs. They're like 45 inches wide and 9 feet long. And there's one left out of that tree. They went pretty quick, but they're amazing. And conference tables can be made out of things like that. And it's just a gorgeous wood.
Indeed.
And then Oregon myrtle is one of my personal favorites. It's a really unique tree, first of all. It's an evergreen broadleaf, and it kind of reproduces or grows by sprouting other little trees all along its root system. So one myrtle tree can get huge, but it always usually has a bunch of little myrtles living right there along with it. And it has a pretty exclusive territory. It just grows along the West Coast and then a little pocket here in the center of California. So primarily most of our myrtle is coming from Southern Oregon and Northern California in this little pocket right there. And we have a really cool sawmill down in Southern Oregon that we work with that salvages most of these trees from chip yards. And so it is amazing to me that these would end up as mulch somewhere instead of some of this amazing furniture and musical instruments and things that people make with it. It's got a really nice kind of buttery yellow to chocolate brown, and there can be tints of green and espresso and all kinds of different coloring in that wood. And I love how it expresses itself sometimes with some figuring and just some really neat grain patterns. And it is a Janka rating of 1270. So it is a pretty dang hard wood, but it's easy to work with. It cuts real nicely and is joyful to work with, to hear most of my sawyers and most of these makers talk about it. John with Stumptown Reclaimed is this guy here, and he specializes in tables, and he always manages to find some really unique pieces to make some beautiful furniture with. And we also do flooring out of it and butcher block countertops too. So it's a really versatile. And again, you know, we pretty much can make any of those products out of any of the lumber that we offer, but for butcher block especially, it's one of my faves because of that grain pattern and coloring that it offers. And tan oak is a little tree that I'd never heard of it. I didn't know what the lumber looked like, and it's a really unique, again, evergreen hardwood. So I think that's one of the things that's pretty unique to this area, is that our hardwood trees are evergreens. And that was not something I had experienced growing up in Kentucky. All of ours are deciduous and lose their leaves in the winter. So, and tan oak is one of those that is, it has some characteristics of oak, looks to me a little like red oak to a degree. But it also has chestnut qualities too. So it's got a little bit of both of those kind of grain patterns. And it makes beautiful butcher block countertops and flooring and furniture, and is quite hard at a Janka 1420. And we typically stock this in 4/4, 5/4, 6/4, and 8/4 material. And I have never seen a tan oak tree out in the world. So that's kind of like my goal, is to hit the West Coast and, you know, line and see if I can locate some tan oak trees, because I just think they look like they would be really cool. And I wanted to go back for just a moment on the different sizes of lumber, you know, the different thicknesses. Myrtle is only offered in sizes up to 6/4 because of a little powder post beetle that the larva is not killed in the kiln if you go in dimensions of above 6/4. And so we try to keep it just a little bit thinner to make sure the kiln does its work, because that's a pretty nasty little pest that we don't want creeping out of people's furniture at some point down the road. So that's worth noting, especially if you run across some myrtle, you know, at a roadside sale or on Craigslist or something like that, to just be mindful and be aware that kiln drying doesn't necessarily kill all the larvae when you go to some of the thicker dimensions that you might find it in.
Good to know. Good to know.
All right, there's tan oak. And then madrone. It's like at any given moment, every one of these species could be my favorite, but madrone is consistently my favorite. It is it's one of my favorite trees. I can't even actually believe that we can make lumber out of these trees. You can kind of see they're very twisty, gnarly, beautiful red barked trees that it doesn't seem possible that you could make straight lumber out of it. But we get some beautiful pieces from this mill in Southern Oregon, same mill that processes our myrtle for us and finds those in shipyards sometimes. But primarily he works with a network of Doug fir loggers that will just cut madrone trees out of the way. They don't want to mess with all this squirreliness when they have those nice straight Doug fir to harvest. And they'll just let John know that that they're in a stand of madrone, and he can send his guys up there to salvage some of those trees out of the forest. Otherwise, they go, into becoming nurse logs and such, I guess, for other forest activity. But we're fortunate enough that he saves a few of those trees and turns them into some really beautiful lumber. The madrone has amazing character. There's a richness and a splash of that red heartwood that shows up in quite a few of the pieces that makes for really interesting furniture, butcher block countertops, flooring, lots of different uses for that lumber as well. And this guy right here is a maker up in Tacoma, Dan Deschaines with Tomfoolery, and he made all of these beautiful pieces here across the middle of the screen. Is a real neat kind of Danish modern kind of look and feel with his own unique twist, and he really loves madrone and makes the best of it. Just really utilizes that unique grain pattern, and that is so sought after. It's very hard. It is a Janka of 1460, and it is a super tight grain. So it makes for a natural antimicrobial kind of surface. So it's really ideal for cutting boards because of that. And it's one of those neat little tidbits that I didn't actually realize about this lumber, but it's very cool and used a lot in the food industry to make cutting boards out of.
What kind of lengths can you get of that, of madrone?
Right now we have up to 12-foot lengths, typically 8s and 10s, but occasionally they'll get in a stand of longer trees that they can do some 12-foot material. All of our lumber comes in random widths and mostly random lengths. So there could be some shortcuts, but primarily 8s, 10s, and then a few 12s every now and then.
Okay, thank you.
We also get this in live edge slabs from time to time too, if you guys are into that kind of thing. And Oregon white oak. And yeah, and again, here I go. Okay, I'm on this one. Now this one's my favorite. And so, and it's hard, because they're each one so unique and beautiful in their own way. I recently, and I should have put this on here, but I recently had an amazing piece of furniture made by Nathan Denahanian as part of my bathroom remodel. He made my bathroom vanity out of some Oregon white oak that we got from Storm Blowdown from Elkton Reserves. And it's just an absolutely amazing piece of furniture. It's beautiful lumber. I grew up with my dad making me pieces of red oak furniture straight from the 80s. I've got some like vintage 80s pieces in my house right now that I will never give up. But there's something unique about our Oregon white oak in just the grain pattern and the coloring. I love that more golden kind of hue that our white oak has. And it's just lovely to work with and beautiful end result. The joinery uses quite a bit of Oregon white oak and dirt, rust, and sawdust, if you know those guys too. So some beautiful doors that he made out of our white oak. Operation Wood Shop did those legs, and that's that little walnut table that he shared some photos with me. And then there's several companies around town that have Oregon white oak installed in their conference areas and reception desks and things like that. And it's really becoming a very popular wood, especially with architects and designers. And what we find, and one of the things that we try to do is to educate people on the usable lumber. Designers and architects are infamous, and maybe furniture makers are too, but infamous for asking for riff sawn lumber, or quarter sawn, and so when you have a whole log and you're only using a tiny little portion of it to get that special little fleck, that you're looking for, it's leaving the whole rest of the tree. And so we primarily stock plain sawn. There'll be some rift, there'll be some quarter sawn in there, but we don't sort for it. And the reason we don't is there's so much beautiful lumber in the overall tree, and oak, especially this Oregon white oak, has become alarmingly endangered in the Willamette Valley because it grows in the same type of soil that grapes love. And so a lot of the original habitat that covered the Willamette Valley in oak has been converted to vineyards, into hazelnut orchards, and to other agricultural plots. And what people usually do is they just go in and they clear the whole land. And so there's only 5% or less of that original habitat of our oak surviving in the Willamette Valley right now. And so we are working with the Oak Accord to help restore 20,000 acres of oak habitat in the valley. And we work real closely with Ben at Xena Forest, and he operates the largest contiguous plot of habitat for Oregon white oak. And he selectively harvests and does a really nice job with his forest. And it's a family-owned forest that he's really taken care of. And he's a great partner and a role model for what can be done. And some of the work that the Oak Accord is doing is helping landowners understand the value of oak as a viable hardwood source. And if you let it grow and then harvest it selectively, it's a viable income. It's also home to a lot of creatures that don't like to live anywhere else besides an oak habitat. So there's definitely value all the way around in providing habitat for animals as well as humans, and that vineyards can actually thrive when they leave a little patch of oak on their property. And so the Oak Accord is doing some outreach to try to get more people to sign up to be part of the Accord, to commit to saving part of their oak habitat on their properties, and to help restore some of that, so that we'll still have oak for future generations.
Thank you. I got a couple questions. One is, do you sell cut lengths or just whole boards?
Primarily whole boards, but there's always the opportunity to find really close to what you're looking for, because we usually get every wood in random widths. So if you're looking for a 7-inch board, we're probably going to have one 7.5, 8 inches wide. If you're looking for specific lengths, most of our lumber is 8 and 10 foot lengths. But like with this particular batch of oak, and pretty much all of the ones, there will be some little cutoffs and pieces that will be shorter if you're looking for something smaller. But primarily we like to sell the board as it comes from the mill. And then because we don't really offer much in the way of cutting services. I mean, we can chop a piece of wood to help you get it in your car. But we like to sell the whole board as it comes from the mill. What other questions do you have about that?
Gary, is this related to the Gary oak of Southwest Washington?
Yeah, I think they're related, but it's a little bit different species. This is, how can I say it? How do I say it?
They're a variant?
Quercus garryanus. Gary, is that right? Somebody else without an Eastern Kentucky accent can probably help me out with that.
Yeah. Quercus
garryanus. Is that how you say it?
Yeah, and this white oak's probably Garrus alba or something like that.
Something like that. I should have the species. Next time I do this, I'll put the genus on there as well. That would be helpful.
And we do need to kind of watch our time here, because Yeah, so.
Yeah, so and in watching our time, I mean, this is kind of coming to the close. I think, you know, whatever you're building, we want to help you build with purpose and to, you know, to build with some sense of having a positive impact in our community and then the forest around us. You know, we all love our Pacific Northwest forest and we want to see them thrive. And we want to see our local communities thrive too. And there's absolutely a way to do both.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think you're doing a great job of that. People had asked me a couple questions. Somebody said that the Gary oak and the Oregon oak are the same species. And how do we get a contractor's list of prices?
Yeah, shoot us an email right there at info@SNW
Okay.
Wood. Make sure to put 2 W's in there, one for Northwest and the other for Wood.
Good.
Yeah, and just tell us that you're with the guild and that you would like our pro price list.
I think I know the answer to this one because I've done it. But you do sell small quantities, just like a single board. If I
Oh, heck
went
yeah.
in.
Yeah, we sell a single board or a truckload. We're not picky.
Okay, cool.
And I love it when the guild members come down. It's always a treat. You guys are always working on interesting projects and are just, you know, enthusiastic about what we have to offer. Most of you guys always feel like this is the candy store and you've come to heaven. So yeah, come on down. I'd love to show you around and introduce yourselves and hopefully, like, you know, maybe toward the end of the year, we'll be able to have some sense of a gathering in person. Everybody on our team is now at least 1 vaccine in. A couple of us are fully vaccinated, so we're getting there. And I think we will, you know, be able to see each other full face to face before too long.
Okay, that's great. A question came through is, does Tamara Rooney still work for you?
You know, she left the company about 2 years ago. She's not here now. We still work with her husband, Brian, quite a bit for, you know, he's with Bench Dog Designs. And we see him from time to time for some butcher block installations. He does that from time to time.
Gotcha.
Yeah, and she gave me a flowering Chinese lantern that actually just bloomed yesterday. I was thinking about her just yesterday.
Hey, do you do delivery of large quantities?
Yeah, we do delivery of large or small quantities. Actually, we can deliver anywhere in the Portland metro area. Delivery's free if your order's $500 or more, or we can do it for $50 if it's less than that.
Oh, okay, that's great. Gary Weber would like to make a comment before we sign off here. So
That'd be
Gary,
great.
I'll let you
Hi,
unmute
Gary.
yourself. Hi, Gary. Probably muted because I muted everybody.
Yeah, I'll bring you guys back up here too. I'll stop that share.
Okay.
Usually I'm not muted when I should be.
It's weird. It's for all of us.
I just wanted to share an experience. I went in yesterday. My wife wants a sliding barn door for our laundry room, and we decided on blue pine. And so I went in yesterday and spent a little bit of time with Lynn. And if you have not been there, I really, really encourage you to go. They're wonderful people. It's a relatively small, and I don't say that in a negative way. It's not a big box store, you know. It's a relatively small and very comfortable location where you can check out the wood. The wood is wonderful. I saw yesterday, and I mentioned this to Lynn when I was there, that I saw some of the most beautiful madrone I'd ever seen in my life. And so not only are they doing the right things, you know, doing for the right reasons, but the wood is unique. It's easily accessible. You can go in, find what you're looking for. They're very easy to work with. They are going to be, from this point forward, they're going to be my #1 source that I look for, that I go to looking for wood. So I encourage you. It's a wonderful experience. When Lynn told me she was from Southeast Portland, I told her, well, she must be from the deep southeast of Portland. But you know, it's I just encourage you to go, if nothing more than to for familiarization. Go in, check it out, look around, get a feel for it. It's an incredible place, and I can't say enough good things about it.
Thank you so much. It was really great to meet you yesterday, and your check's in the mail. That was like the best
Yeah, all right, there you
testimonial
go.
I could have ever have hoped for.
Well, I would like to really thank you a lot. We've done questions as we go along, so I don't know if we really need to do a Q&A at the end here, because I much prefer to do them as we go along, because I think it makes it more spontaneous, more interesting. And I would really like to thank you a lot. I too have been to your shop, as you well know, because you've seen some of the things I've built with the wood, and I've got a pavilion I'm going to be building in the back, so you'll hear from me soon again. But I'd really like to thank you on behalf of the guild, and I totally agree with Gary. You're doing good stuff. Keep it up. So
Thank you.
thank you very much.
We could not do what we do without you. So
Okay.
thank you.
I'll be in the shop tomorrow, planing, milling, opening the package of that blue pine, if somebody wants to see what it looks like. So
That's amazing.
yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Thank you, Lynn, for everything.
Maybe Gary, maybe you could do a little thing on show and tell next week about take some pictures.
I might be able to do that. Let me check my calendar, Joe. I'm pretty dang busy, you know.
Oh, I know you are.
Yeah.
Aren't we all?
Yeah.
Yeah, send me your pictures. I would love to see your photos. You can send them to that same email address at info, or to me at Lynn at SMW Wood. Yeah.
I'll try to.
People always want to be inspired, and you are the most inspiring group that we work with. So yeah, send them my way.
Will do.
And I'd like to close by asking people if they find what kinds of things do they find most interesting for these kinds of presentation. And you can just email me directly at joe.wheaton at the Guild of Oregon Woodworkers.org. And so if you found this presentation interesting, let me know, and give me some feedback on what other kinds of things you'd like to see. And with that, I'm ready to go.
Thanks, Joe.
Thank you, Lynn.
Thanks, Lynn.
Thanks, everybody. Thank you all so much for your time.
All right. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Lynn.
Good night, folks. That's it.
Night, night.